I did a video recently on the number one best anti-inflammatory food. Today, we're going to talk about the number one inflammatory food on the planet. So there's a lot of confusion in this area of what causes inflammation. You have the vegans telling you that red meat and other types of animal products cause inflammation. And then you have the carnivores over here saying it's the fiber that's causing inflammation. So they get rid of all the fiber and the plants and all their inflammation goes away. So this is really confusing the public. Like, what do you do? There's many plants and herbs that have natural anti-inflammatories, right? Turmeric and milk thistle and stinging nettle root and many other plants have anti-inflammatories. But of course, they also have anti-nutrients, right?
Some people might say plants weren't designed for us to consume because they don't want to be eaten.
But someone could say the same thing with animals. Animals don't want to be eaten too. They want to survive, right? So there's this big battle on this fiber, right? Fiber. Is it good? Is it bad? Should we consume more of it? I know personally for me, when I started getting rid of the grain fibers and start consuming more protein, especially for breakfast, a lot of my inflammation
And went away.
but I also consume a lot of plants and doesn't create inflammation in my gut. So why is it that some people do well on more meat and maybe other people might do better on plants? Now I'm going to cover this topic in the relationship to inflammation because you have people that have autoimmune diseases and nearly all the autoimmune diseases start in your gut. You also have a lot of people who have allergies to milk, nuts, eggs, gluten. Now, there's two really interesting things I want to just mention right off the bat. There are basically two things that we can't digest. Humans cannot digest fiber. Okay, it's non-digestible. We don't have the enzymes to digest fiber. And also, gluten, the protein in grains, is the only protein that we can't digest. And now, what about this fiber, right? Do we have a problem with fiber? Well, some people can do well with fiber and other people can't. So, what breaks down the fiber? It's your microbes. So, if you were just to do some research on your own, just type in Google fiber, gut health, fiber inflammation, gut inflammation, you're going to just find fiber is anti-inflammatory. You're going to find that for so many different research articles will tell you that, but it doesn't really explain when a carnivore cuts out the fiber, man, that they feel better, like their autoimmune diseases clear up, their allergies clear up. So what is going on there? Well, what if you were to type unfermented fiber? Okay. Like maybe overloading the gut with so much fiber that you can't digest it, and some of it's unfermented. It's not broken down because the way that microbes deal with fiber is they ferment it. So if you were to type on that, you're going to find something really interesting. You're going to find that unfermented fiber is inflammatory. So that's probably what's happening. And the reason why that's happening is there's some alteration in the gut microbiome. So you just don't have enough of the right microbes to deal with this fiber. If you're like me in practice, you have a lot of experience working with people one-on-one with fiber, without fiber, and the history of maybe when they start developing inflammation. And there's always a time frame in their life that all of a sudden they can't digest this, or all of a sudden they starting having inflammation. And so it's really important to do a history on what that person consumed before that, whether they developed an allergy as a child or late in life. For me, I can get away with eating anything until I was in my 20s. So if you start asking questions about someone's past, about what they ate, and what would alter the microbes, you get some really interesting information. We know antibiotics destroy your microbes, right? Like 80% of your microbes, they die off. So people who have had a lot of antibiotics have a lot of gut inflammation. They have more autoimmune, they have more allergies.
And also what an infant is fed.
Had they had breast milk, which is loaded with probiotics from birth and a lot of other things to build the immune system. So I think a lot of these inflammatory problems start early on as a child. And if we look at what kids eat, it's a lot of ultra processed foods, AKA junk foods. Could this be the source of that? We have salt. We don't have a lot of fiber. We have sugar. We have different forms of sugar. We have different forms of flour. We have different oils. Maybe it's a combination of all these right here, right? And it's so funny that they call it ultra processed food because it doesn't even resemble food. But before I go any further, I want to share something about ultra processed food companies. This is a little short story, but I wanted to tell you a little bit about the tobacco industry.
These companies got to a point where there was just too much mounting evidence that proves that smoking is bad for you.
In December 1953, the CEOs from five tobacco companies met together at a hotel, and they came up with a strategy to counter this. They formed the Tobacco Industry Research Committee to control the science, and they focused on creating doubt. They said as long as doubt and controversy prevailed, the industry could fight off regulations
because it is the best means of competing with a body of facts.
that exist in the general public. It is also the means of establishing a controversy. But what's even more interesting, between 1988 and 2001, certain tobacco companies owned Kraft, General Foods, and Nabisco. So apparently a lot of the ultra processed food companies adopted some of these tactics as well. I mean, if you even look at the time frame between the 80s and now, I mean, obesity has tripled. Kids are developing diabetes. There's conflict of interest with the scientific academies and advisory committees that form our food pyramid. There was an investigation in 2002 into the dietitian organization and found that they were investing in stocks in Nestle, Pepsi Cola, Johnson & Johnson. So there's a lot of conflict of interest. But the ultra-processed food companies have created a lot of doubt and uncertainty into the public. They blame the individual, not the food. They attack the scientists who speak out. They emphasize and promote physical activity over the diet. They deny the existence of harmful foods, saying there's no bad food, it's just bad choices. And they have an endless call for we need more research because it's inconclusive. So in other words, there's a lot of corruption in this area of ultra-processed food. And one thing that's very interesting about ultra-processed food is that there's a high level of glyphosate. It's in the corn, it's in the soy, it's in the cottonseed oil, canola oils. It's in the wheat products. It's sprayed on the wheat. Did you know that glyphosate is also classified and even patented as an antibiotic? Glyphosate inhibits lactobacillus and bifidobacteria, two main strains of gut bacteria. And out of all the antibiotics that humans have taken, because the widely promoted and sold glyphosate, this is the main antibiotic that's being put into our food. And very unfortunately, we've been put on an antibiotic without even knowing it. And so out of all the combinations of these ingredients, glyphosate is at the top of the list as far as of what it does to our microbiome. Now, in plants, what it does is it kills bacteria, okay, in the soil, and then it allows the unfriendly bacteria to overgrow and kill the plant. In fact, in this one report that I read, if you spray glyphosate in the sterile soil where there's no bacteria, apparently it doesn't kill the plant. In other words, you have to strengthen the pathogens by getting rid of the defense mechanism so it can take over the plant. I wonder if this is happening to our guts right now, especially since autoimmune diseases and many allergies start at the gut. And if we've been on an antibiotic for all these years, what is that doing to our inflammation? So as soon as we create enough damage in the gut, now we can't handle the fiber. Why? Because the microbes aren't correct and we're going to get unfermented fiber and it's going to irritate us. And this is why people that go on a carnivore diet do much, much better. And then when you change a child's diet and get them off the ultra processed foods, right, they start having all sorts of positive outcomes. So the number one most inflammatory food on the planet is this right here, ultra processed foods, which is more than one, but it's a basic recipe of sugar, flour, and seed oils with glyphosate. All right, so now that you know the most inflammatory food, if you haven't seen my video on the most anti-inflammatory food, that's a very interesting one too. I'm going to put that right here. Check it out.